Hi, my name is Miss Muniz. I teach 9th grade at Huguenot High School, and I'm excited to get to work with you 6th graders this week to talk about supporting details and a little bit with main idea, but we're mainly going to focus on supporting details in nonfiction pieces. Okay, for the first kind of couple days, we're going to talk about debates and articles that focus on two different sides or viewpoints so that we can talk about supporting details for each of those viewpoints and how those fit into the main idea and support our main idea. The third and the fourth couple days, we'll do more of just kind of straight articles that'll have one central main idea that will have supporting details throughout the article. Before we get started on that and diving into our first article of the week, I just want to kind of talk to you about supporting details in general. For supporting details, you're going to want to look first at the title of the article, all right? The title of the article can give us so much information, right? It's going to really give us information on what the main idea is, which of course is what we're trying to support with our supporting details. So our title, when I look at the title, I like to look for synonyms to words in the title, because that helps me think of how the author or the writer might talk about that throughout the article and words that I can look for and search for in the article that will help me find those supporting details, right? Because if the author starts talking about that word in the title in a very specific way, then we're like, oh, there's probably something important here, right? If there's a fact or a statistic or a story, an example, that might be a supporting detail, right? Those are actually great examples. If you have a fact, right, that they say, well, there are 3 billion people on the planet right now, okay? That could be a fact that someone is using to make a point, right? If I say there have been 2 sunny days in a row where I'm at, then that is why people have been outside a lot more, right? Maybe that's supporting my idea that people have been outside more because it's been really nice out, okay? So we're going to talk about supporting details for the first couple days in a discussion about a debate. Now, this first article I thought was perfect timing for what we're doing right now, right? We're doing virtual classes, virtual learning. That's how you are seeing me right now. So our first piece that I'm going to switch screens into, the link to it, if you would like to follow along with me, is underneath the video, so you can find it on your page as well. It's called Virtual Debate, News Debate, Virtual Ed, or Virtual Education, right? So I'm going to switch screens so that you can see that right now, so that you can see what we will be discussing. So give me a moment. All right. You should now be seeing the readworks.org, which is where I'm going to be pulling articles from this week. They have a lot of great articles, both nonfiction and fiction. So if you find any of these interesting, feel free to kind of explore ReadWorks. If you need other support for other contents, there's lots of different pieces. For example, this one, as you can see over here, it's kind of focusing on social studies and science. I'm trying to pull a selection of articles that have a wide range of interests so that hopefully you will be able to read something with us this week that will pique your interest and spark your excitement. All right. But I thought this first article was a great way to dive in, since we are doing virtual education and virtual learning right now. Let's look at our title first. Like I said, our title, News Debate, Virtual Education, or Virtual Ed. So I want you to take us a minute to go ahead and write down some words that you think of when you think of news, words that you think of when you think of debate, and words that you think of when you hear the phrase virtual education, all right? So you can think of other words that kind of go along with those, or you can think of words that are synonyms to those words, all right? So go ahead and take a minute and think of some synonyms or some other words that go along with those topics. All right, so something that I think of when I think of news, I think of maybe TV news, I think of newspaper news articles, I think of nonfiction, of things that are going to be factual, of things that are going to be true, right? Some words that I think of when I think of debate, I think of argument, I think of disagreement, I think of pros and cons, right? I think of kind of conflict almost, maybe, right? There's two sides. When I think of virtual education, I think of virtual learning. I think of cyber schools. I think of online learning. I think of online teaching. Those are some things that I think of. Okay, so I want you to look at your list, right? It doesn't have to be my list. It's things that you think of. Okay, if you want to add mine, you can. A great tool I wanted to point out to you on all ReadWorks articles. Look at this top bar right here. It has a play button and then it has a little skip screen here. So you can click on that and a voice will read the article to you. Okay, so if you'd like to follow along and have it read to you, you can go ahead and click that button and it'll read it out loud to you and you can follow along yourself at your own pace. All right. So our first subheading here, because we have our main title, which is News, Debate, Virtual Ed, and then we have a subheading, Do Cyber Schools Make the Grade? This first subheading, the first kind of like couple paragraphs or maybe paragraph in an article are usually going to tell you what the main idea of the piece is. And in this case, it's going to tell us our two sides to our debate. So, do cyber schools make the grade? This first section, I want you to go ahead and take a minute. I'm not going to read it out loud. But like I said, if you would like it read out loud, go ahead and click the button up here. You can read aloud or you can read it to yourself. I want you to go ahead and read through this first little section here, all right? It's about 3 paragraphs. So go ahead and read, do cyber schools make the grade? And I want you to try to pick out what you think the main point of this article is. Think about, again, the title to help you. So go ahead and take a couple minutes to read through, do cyber schools make the grade? These first 3 paragraphs. All right, remember, once you're finished reading, I would like you to jot down what you think the main idea of this article is. Use the title to help you if you need that. Take another 30 seconds. All right, so I want you to look at what you think the main idea of this article is. Again, if you haven't written it down, go ahead and take a couple seconds and jot it down while we're talking through it. So these first 3 paragraphs here on do cyber schools make the grade under that subheading, we have it talking about a specific place, right? Remember how we said that can kind of key us into what the main idea is going to be, or supporting details? So it's talking about a specific place that people are using virtual schools, right? And it talks about how that's set up. So it's talking about what the setup of this specific situation is. So it's talking about that students are working at home and parents are helping, and there's a teacher that will help and oversee the student's progress, okay? This time, the next paragraph then jumps into why it was started, right? So it's giving us some background information on our kind of topic of virtual education. And then we get into our key points here. Okay, I want you to look closely now, right? Because towards the end of our little introduction kind of section here, which is do cyber schools make the grade, it's going to start to get to our main idea and start introducing our supporting details. All right. As we have in the title, it's a debate, right? That means there have to be two sides. It's introducing our two sides. It says that supporters, right here, we have supporters of the program say that virtual schools can help students avoid social pressures that can interfere with learning, right? So it's giving us kind of a supporting detail there and our main idea. It's saying that there are supporters of this movement of virtual learning. Okay, so there are supporters of virtual learning, but in our second paragraph that kind of introduces the topic, or our third paragraph, sorry, it says not everyone gives cyber schools a passing grade, however. So there's our second point to our main idea. Because it's a debate, there's kind of going to be 2 points to our main idea, right? Because you have to have the one side and the other side in the main idea. So we have as our main idea that some people support virtual learning and some people are against virtual learning. Okay, great job. We're going to now transition into our section that I want you to look at this subheading again, crash course to failure. When you look at that subheading, crash course to failure, do you think this section is going to be for online learning or for virtual education or against virtual education? Crash course to failure. I think it's probably going to be against, right? I mean, it has crash, it has failure in the heading. So I'm thinking that this is going to be about failure of virtual learning. All right, so when we look at this, we're probably going to get outlined for why someone thinks it's a negative. Okay, so on your paper, I want you to split the page in half. Just draw a line down the middle, okay? And then on the one side, we can do for virtual ed. And on the other side, you can write against virtual ed. It doesn't matter which side you put it on, that's totally up to you, okay? But right now we're gonna read about the argument against virtual education. So you'll be writing in that column, the column for against virtual education, right? All right, so let's take a look at this. I want you to take a minute to go ahead and read through this section, and I want you to look for 3 points that this person is outlining as an argument against virtual education. Look for 3 points on what they think are the reasons against virtual education. All right, so remember, you are looking for points that support, that are going for the argument against virtual education, right? All right, so I have two columns on my paper, one that's against and one that's for support. All right, so again, we are writing in the against column right now because Crash Course to Failure, this section is about the against argument. All right, so look at your list. I want you to have 2 to 3 points about what this author is talking about against virtual education. All right, so in this first intro, kind of 2 sentences, it says that technology can benefit education, but it shouldn't take over education. And it says that students who go to virtual schools will miss out on the benefits of being in a real school. So my first thought is, what are those benefits, right? Then the second paragraph tells us one of those key benefits, which is one of our first key supporting details. It says that students will miss out on important social interactions, right? That they are missing important social interactions, right? So that was one of my first points. They're missing social interactions. Think about who you interact with when you're at school. You interact with your friends, your peers, you interact with your classmates, you interact with your teachers, you interact with your coaches, you interact with a lot of different people, right? When you're at home, you probably just have your siblings and your family members, maybe some close friends that are there that you're interacting with. You don't have those outside influences or people, okay? And it's saying that that is a negative in this case, all right? In our next section, it says that in addition, right, that's a transition word and one that tells us there's another point here. It tells us that virtual schools don't have enough structure. Right? So there's not enough structure. That's my second bullet point, not enough structure. What kind of structure are they talking about here, right? It talks about setting your own schedules, and that can be trouble or have difficulty for students that maybe have trouble staying focused all the time or have trouble staying motivated, especially in a class maybe that it's not your favorite, right? So there's not enough structure is their point. All right, that's my second bullet point. The last point you can see here, again, another transition word, furthermore, which tells us another point is coming up, another supporting detail is coming up. It says online school puts stress on parents. It puts stress on parents, right? We don't want to put more stress on our parents. So it says it puts stress on parents. Parents, I'm going to add also or family, right? So it says put stress on parents or family, because what if you have a younger sibling too, and you might be the one that's supposed to help them with their online learning, right? So that could put some pressure on you as well. So we have here in my against piece, I have that we have, I'm going to switch so that you can see my piece right now. All right. So I have here, I have that we have in the against column, I have that we have, people, social interaction. We have that there is not enough structure, and then we also have that it puts pressure on parents or family. All right, I'm going to switch back so you can see my screen again, so we can go back to the article. All right, so next we're going to look at the argument supporting virtual education, right? Because we talked about the argument against. So go ahead and take a couple minutes to read through this and jot down like we just did for the against column. If we had 3 for the against, we're probably going to have 3 for support. So I want you to look for 3 key supporting details for support in virtual education. It's time for tech. Go ahead and read through and look for 3 points about supporting virtual education. All right, so I'm going to show you my list since we did the other one a little bit together. I'm going to show you my list. Here we go. All right. So now I have my 2 columns completely filled out. For my support, I found in the 1 paragraph, it talks about that students can learn at their own pace, right? Students can figure out, if I really don't understand supporting details, maybe I need to watch the video again. Whereas in a classroom, you might have to stay after school, or you might have to make extra time with a teacher outside of that classroom space because you don't have enough time in that class to really understand it fully. I know that happened a lot for me in math. I have to stay after school and make extra time, where maybe if I was learning online, I could have just taken maybe an extra 15 minutes and I would have gotten it, right then and there. The second argument, which lines up with our against argument, is that there's flexible schedules, right? In our against argument, it says there's not enough structure or not enough schedule. The support argument is saying that can actually be a good thing, right? What if you're just really busy as a student? You might have other obligations to help take care of your siblings. You might have other extracurricular activities that you take part in that, being able to work in your learning might look different than a traditional school day. And last, it had that it can prepare you for college and for work. Okay, so it's saying that, we're going to have to use technology a lot in the real world, and having virtual schools helps prepare us for that because it gets us comfortable with it. It has us practicing using this technology. Okay, so you should have something that looks a little bit like this, kind of a T-chart. It has our main idea up here. Some people support and some people are against virtual ed. And then we have our against column with our supporting details and our support column with our supporting details. Now, again, this is going to be a very specific structure to debate articles, and I'm going to have you actually practice that for your homework or I guess everything is homework right now. You're going to do your homework on another kind of debate article that's called Debate a Gym Jam, which talks about whether students should have to take physical education, or if that shouldn't be a requirement, that students shouldn't have a physical education component to their classwork. All right, so it's talking about if PE is a critical class, if you need that, if students should be required to take that. Okay, so I want you, when you're doing that, to set up a similar thing. You should put your main idea up here, which is going to be similar to this, right? Some people support PE as a requirement and some people don't support PE as a requirement, right? Then you're going to have against and support. And I want you to come up with 2 to 3, but ideally 3 points against and 3 points for when you're looking at the PE, the Gym Jam article. All right, again, that should be linked underneath this video. If you need help throughout that, please feel free to watch this video again to kind of get some tips. Again, you're going to want to look at the subheadings. You're going to want to look at the main title. And then you're going to look for those transition words that we looked at, right? Because that tells us, oh, here comes another detail. Here comes another supporting detail. All right. So that's what I want you to look at when you are reading through the debate article on a Gym Jam. We'll talk about that more tomorrow and go over some supporting details that I found, and I'd love to hear what you found. So go ahead and start reading that article, and also feel free to explore ReadWorks, see if there's other articles that you find interesting or that could help you in some of your other subjects as well. They're a great resource.